I was walking back from the attorney's office in high spirits, burning with the desire to tell my son and daughter-in-law that my brother had left me his lake house and 2 condos. I was carrying gifts for my future grandson, but through the open window, I saw my daughter-in-law unstrapping a fake belly and saying to my son, "She's so naive, she'll sign the house over to us for the sake of a grandson who doesn't exist." Welcome, my dear listeners. Before I open the door to my story, I ask just one thing. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments what city you're tuning in from. Your support helps simple stories like mine be heard. Happy listening. That July day, the heat in the city was unbearable. The asphalt was practically melting, radiating a heavy smell of tar that mixed with the sweet scent of blooming honeysuckle. But I didn't notice the heat. I felt like I was floating above the scorching sidewalk, feeling neither my age nor my fatigue, nor the usual ache in my joints. I'm 64 years old. My name is Ulea Hightower, a pensioner and a retired librarian. And until this very afternoon, I believed my life was a slow fading away in the shadow of other people's desires. But today, everything changed. I clutched a velvet burgundy pouch to my chest. Inside, wrapped in thin tissue paper, were 2 antique silver spoons with enamel handles. I'd bought them at a vintage shop on the corner, spending nearly half my pension check. It was a gift for my grandson or granddaughter. We didn't know who would be born yet, but I already loved this child more than life itself. It was for his sake that I tolerated the whims of my daughter-in-law, Varisha, and the eternal dissatisfaction of my son, Kellen. But the wings on my back weren't grown because of the spoons. An hour earlier, I had been sitting in the cool wood-paneled office of Augustus Sterling, an old friend of our family and an attorney. He had taken off his glasses, wiped them with a checkered handkerchief, and read the last will and testament of my late brother, Langston. Langston and I hadn't spoken in years. A stupid argument over nothing had separated us on opposite sides of a barricade of silence. I thought he had forgotten about me. I thought his fortune would go to some foundation or his wife's distant relatives. "Everything, Ulea," Augustus had said, looking at me over his spectacles. "Absolutely everything. 2 condos downtown, the winter cabin in the Poconos, and the bank accounts. You are a wealthy woman now, Lula." I walked out of there, not feeling the ground beneath my feet. Numbers and plans swirled in my head. 2 condos, the cabin? Lord, this was the solution to every problem. Kellen had dreamed of his own luxury car for so long, of starting a business. Varisha was always complaining that our old brownstone with its high ceilings was drafty and dangerous for a baby. Now I could fix everything. I could be more than just the convenient mother who cooks and cleans. I could be a savior, a fairy godmother. I turned into my alley. Our home, an old Victorian-era row house with thick brick walls and molding on the facade, had always seemed like a fortress to me. My windows on the first floor looked out into a quiet courtyard overgrown with wild ivy. Usually, I kept them closed so street dust wouldn't settle on my books, but today, when I left, I had thrown the sash wide open, hoping for a breeze. I walked under the archway of the courtyard. It was dim and cool here. My steps grew quieter. I didn't want to scare away this feeling of magic I was carrying home. I was already imagining how I would walk in, how I would set the cake I bought on the way onto the table, how I would see my son's eyes go wide. Approaching my window, I heard laughter, the loud, rolling laugh of Kellen, and the high-pitched screeching cackle of Varisha. I smiled. How good that they were in high spirits. The news would land on fertile soil. I was about to tap on the glass to surprise them, but something stopped me. Some intonation in my son's voice. A note too mean, too dismissive, slipped through his laughter. I froze, pressing my shoulder against the warm brick wall and cautiously peeked through the slit between the lace curtains. Varisha was standing in the middle of the living room. She was wearing a loose tunic with a floral pattern that I had ironed for her that morning. But what she was doing made my breath catch in my throat, turning into a ball of ice. She was unbuckling the straps of a strange contraption at her waist. A lock clicked. Varisha exhaled with relief and pulled the contraption down. It was a prosthetic belly, a frame made of foam and fabric, masterfully crafted, voluminous, simulating a pregnancy of 6 months. She carelessly tossed it onto the sofa, as if it were a throw pillow. The belly bounced and fell to the floor. Varisha stretched her whole body, rolling her spine, her completely flat and slender spine. "Lord, I am roasting in this corset," she groaned. collapsing into the armchair and throwing her legs up onto the coffee table, right on my favorite tablecloth. Kay, toss me a beer. Kellen, my baby boy, into whom I had poured my entire soul, sat opposite her, cracking open a cold one. He didn't look shocked. He looked bored. Hang in there, Reh, he chuckled, taking a sip. Not much longer. Mom is already on the hook. Did you see how she was hopping around you today? Farisha baby, eat some yogurt. Farisha baby, is there a draft? They both burst out laughing. That sound now cut my ears like broken glass. She's such a naive old sheep, Farisha said, and every word felt like a slap in the face. Mark my words, Kay. Another week of this show and she'll sign this shack over to us. I told her yesterday that I need to nest, that I don't feel like the mistress of the house. She almost cried from emotion. For the sake of a grandson who doesn't exist, she'll give up everything. And as soon as the deed is in our names, we'll ditch this circus and send her to live at that old shack in the country. The shack? Kellen echoed lazily, scratching his stomach. Why not? The air is healthier for her there, and we'll renovate this place. Knock these walls down to hell. I stood outside the window, and the velvet bag with the silver spoons seemed to fill with lead. It dragged me to the ground. Inside me, something snapped. There were no hysterics, no tears. There was just a sensation that all the love, all the tenderness, all the warmth I had stored up for years instantly drained out of my body like water from a cracked vessel. Only emptiness remained, a ringing, cold, transparent emptiness. I looked at my son, at his bloated face, at his shifting eyes. I looked at Farisha, predatory, satisfied, calculating. I saw strangers. I saw parasites. They didn't just want my house. They were laughing at me. They despised my love. My naivete was just an opportunity for robbery to them. For a moment, I wanted to scream, smash the window, storm in there, and throw them out right now. But the librarian in me, the woman who had maintained silence in reading rooms for 40 years, called for order. Anger is fire. It burns quickly and uncontrollably. I needed ice, the cold head of a judge passing a sentence. I stepped back from the window into the shadow of the arch, leaned my back against the wall, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. It smelled of dust and someone's fried chicken.
My heart beats steadily, calmly, hitting my ribs with a heavy, dull rhythm. A naive sheep, is it? Fine, let it be a sheep. But they forgot that sometimes sheep turn out to be wolves in victims' clothing. I hid the velvet bag with the spoons deep in the bowels of my old leather purse. Silver is a gift for the living, for the real, for those who have a future. These two didn't deserve it. Instead, I walked into the corner liquor store and bought a bottle of expensive bourbon, the kind Callan loved but could never afford. I fixed my hair, smoothed the pleats of my skirt, and walked resolutely toward the entrance. The key turned in the lock with its familiar grind. I heard the commotion start in the apartment, rustling, quick footsteps, the sound of something soft falling. "Mom's home," Colin hissed. I waited exactly 10 seconds, giving them time to put the scenery back in place and open the door. On my face shone the most radiant, warmest, and fakest smile of my life. "My darlings," I exclaimed from the threshold, setting my bag on the console table. "I come to you with news." "What kind?" Farisha was sitting on the sofa, covered with a blanket up to her chin. Her face expressed suffering and fatigue. Colin stood nearby, playing the caring husband. "Quiet, Ma," he said, frowning theatrically. "Farisha has a headache." "Oh, forgive me," I lowered my voice, but didn't drop the smile. I walked into the room, pulled out the bottle of bourbon, and set it on the table with a loud thud. But the occasion is such that even a headache will pass. "What's this, Ma?" Colin stared at the bottle in surprise. "Bawling out with your pension?" "No, baby." I sat in the armchair opposite them, squaring my shoulders. I felt like an actress on a Broadway stage. "Not the pension. I was with the attorney, Augustus Sterling." They glanced at each other. A predatory glint flashed in Varisha's eyes, and she asked, forgetting her languid voice, "Your uncle, my brother Langston, rest his soul, left a will." I paused. I enjoyed that pause. I saw their necks tense, saw Colin lean forward. "He left me everything," I continued slowly.
2 luxury condos in new developments, a cabin with a sauna and pool, and bank accounts. Oh, Colin, the sum is so large it's enough for 3 lifetimes. The silence in the room became tangible. Colin opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound. Varisha threw off the blanket, forgetting her role as the sick patient. "Are you serious, Hulea?" she whispered. It's millions." "Tens of millions," I corrected, looking her straight in the eye. I didn't believe it myself, but the documents are signed. Colin jumped up. His face went red with excitement. Mama, can you imagine? We're kings now, Ree. You hear that? We'll buy a house, we'll buy that car. Ma, when can we withdraw the money?" I remained calm. I watched their joy, their greed oozing from every pore, and prepared my strike. "There is one nuance," I said softly, as if apologizing. "What kind of nuance?" Colin became alert. Uncle Langston was an old-fashioned man, principled. I sighed and spread my hands. There is a strict condition in the will. He wanted the bloodline to continue, for the family name to live on. I leaned toward them, lowering my voice to a confidential whisper. "The papers say it in black and white. Ownership of the real estate and access to the accounts passes to me and my family only at the moment of the birth of a direct blood grandson, male." I watched the color drain from Varisha's face. "What?" she choked out. "Yes, honey," I patted my knees affectionately. "The money is frozen. The attorney said as soon as we bring the birth certificate and the discharge papers from the hospital, and a DNA test, of course, that's a mandatory requirement of the trust, then immediately that same day, they'll hand us the keys and cards. Imagine how perfect the timing is." I looked at Varisha's flat belly, hidden under the tunic, and smiled even wider. "You're due in 3 months. That's wonderful. We'll suffer a little now, but then we'll live like royalty. For the sake of the grandson, for the sake of our heir." The trap snapped shut. I saw the terror in their eyes, but they couldn't say a word. They couldn't confess now when millions were at stake. They needed a baby, and there was no baby. "Well then," I briskly rose from the chair. "Let's celebrate. I'll go to the kitchen and cut up some lemon, and you two think about the future." I turned my back on them and walked to the kitchen, feeling the panic thickening in the room behind me. The game had begun. I stood at the kitchen counter, slicing a lemon with surgical precision into the thinnest, almost transparent slices. Sour juice hit a angle and sharp pain pierced my finger, but I didn't even wince. This pain was alive, real, unlike the charade playing out in the living room. Through the slightly open door, their agitated whispering reached me. They hissed at each other like 2 snakes in a jar. "What DNA test?" Varisha whispered hysterically. "Cal, do you understand? This is the end. We have to bail. We'll say it was a miscarriage. We'll take her apartment." "You idiot," Colin interrupted her. In his voice rang that same greed I was counting on. "What miscarriage? We're talking millions, dollars, real estate. If we play a tragedy now, Mom will just keep it all for herself or give it to some cat charity. We have to stall." "How? There's no belly, no baby." "We'll think of something," my son growled. "We'll buy a certificate, find an unwanted baby for a couple of days just to show them. The main thing is not to lose the inheritance. Did you hear? 2 condos downtown." I smiled at my reflection in the dark window glass. The fish had swallowed the bait, hook and all. They wouldn't run. Greed is the most reliable leash. I returned to the room with a tray. Tea steamed in porcelain cups. The lemon lay on the saucer in a perfect fan. "Well, my dears," I sang, setting down the silverware. "It's decided. From this day on, we live differently. The health of the heir is at stake. Varisha, honey, you cannot be stressed. I am taking all the chores upon myself." From that morning on, their life turned into a hell wrapped in the packaging of boundless motherly love. I started with the food. No pizza, no takeout, I declared the next day, taking the phone out of Varisha's hands with the delivery app open. I read my brother's medical encyclopedia. For brain formation, a boy needs special micronutrients. I boiled broths for them, thick, fatty bone broths made from beef knuckles that simmered for 6 hours. I purposely didn't add salt, claiming sodium causes swelling. The smell of boiled fat soaked the entire apartment, eating into the curtains and wallpaper. Varisha sat over her bowl, turning green from nausea. This time, real nausea. "Ma, I can't. I feel sick," she whined, pushing the spoon away. "You must, daughter." I pushed the bowl back, stroking her shoulder gently. "You don't want the grandson to be born weak, do you? Uncle Langston valued healthy heirs very much. Eat. I won't leave until I see the bottom of the bowl." And she ate. She gagged, swallowed, washed it down with water. But she ate because every sip of that nauseating sludge brought her closer to the imaginary millions. Callan tried to defend her, but I quickly found a way to handle him too. Cal, don't you think your job as a window salesman takes up too much time? I asked one evening when he came back tired and angry. Varisha needs support. It's hard for her to carry a big boy. Ma, we need money, he grumbled. Money? I laughed, waving my hand dismissively. Why do you need those pennies? Soon we'll have so much money you could buy that window factory whole and close it down immediately. Quit. I will give you an allowance from my pension, but you'll be by your wife's side, massaging her feet, reading classics aloud. The child must hear the father's voice. Colin, lazy by nature and prone to idleness, resisted for show for exactly 5 minutes. The next morning, he was already calling his boss. It was my strategic strike. By depriving them of income, I made them completely dependent on me. Now they had to ask me for money for everything, for cigarettes, for lipstick, for bus fare, and every time I demanded a report. Callan, baby, $20 for cigarettes. I shook my head reproachfully, pulling out my wallet. Smoking hurts passive smokers, but fine, here, just bring the receipt. I'm keeping the books for a report to the attorney. They found themselves in a golden cage. Varisha tried to sneak out under the pretext of meeting a girlfriend, but I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. No girlfriends, I cut her off. There's a flu epidemic in the city. Do you want to risk the inheritance? Stay home. I'll air out the room. For 2 weeks, I suffocated them with my care. I saw how they hated me, how they ground their teeth when I adjusted the pillow behind Varisha's back or forced Callan to read Tolstoy aloud. But they endured. They were waiting for the prize, and I was preparing a new test. On a Tuesday, I returned from the store not with groceries, but with a huge fabric bag. What's that? Varisha grew alert, not looking up from the TV. I enthusiastically dumped the contents onto the table, cutting lengths of pale yellow, grassy green, and milky white flannel, lace, ribbons, skeins of thread. No synthetics, only natural cotton. Stores nowadays are full of chemicals, I declared, unrolling yard after yard. Chinese dyes, toxic seams. No, my grandson will wear only what is sewn by the hands of a loving grandmother. I will sew the entire lay himself. Diapers, onesies, bonnets. Colin rolled his eyes but stayed silent. Varisha, however, tensed up. Stand up, honey, I commanded, pulling out a measuring tape and a box of sewing pins. Need to take measurements. Why? She tried to press herself into the sofa. Onesies are loose. I need to know how the tummy is growing, to sew the coming home outfit and a suit for walks. Taking growth dynamics into account, I spoke in a tone that begged no argument. Stand up. This is for family history. Varisha reluctantly stood. She was wearing that same wide t-shirt. Lift it up, I said. What? She went pale. Lift the shirt. I need to see the contours so the patterns fit perfectly. I'm cold, she lied, pressing her arms to her sides. Measure over it. All right, I didn't insist, so not to scare the game away too early. But stand still. I began to crawl around her with the measuring tape. I tightened the tape at her waist where the fake belly began, recording numbers in a notebook, muttering under my breath. Okay, volume increased. Excellent. Then I took the fabric. I pressed a piece of yellow flannel right against her stomach, pretending to figure out the style. In my hand was a dozen sharp sewing pins with multicolored heads. We'll make a dart right here, I mumbled, pinning the fabric right on her. I drove the pin into the fabric. Varisha didn't flinch. The needle went into the foam. Oops, cricket, I complained and repinned it. I circled her like a hawk. Varisha was sweating. I saw beads of sweat rolling down her temples. She was afraid I'd notice the forgery. She was afraid I'd demand she bear the belly. It's so static, I remarked, running my palm over the bulge under the t-shirt. My hand felt the rigid, unnatural firmness of the construction, not the warmth of living flesh, but the dry heat of synthetic material. Varisha held her breath. He's sleeping, probably, she squeaked. Probably, I agreed. I took another pin, a long one with a red ball on the end. Turn sideways, I asked. Varisha turned. I pressed the fabric to her side, where the padding transitioned into her own body, and with a swing, as if by accident, stuck the pin not into the foam, but slightly lower into the soft skin of her hip. Ouch! Varisha screamed, jerking away. Oh, forgive me, darling. I threw up my hands, looking at her with fright. Hands slipped. Old age is no joy. It hurts? Varisha slashed her eyes angrily, rubbing the pricked spot. She wanted to yell at me. I saw the cursed words spinning on her tongue, but she remembered the 2 condos in the cabin. It's nothing, she hissed through her teeth. It happens. I put my hand on her stomach again, pressed a little harder, feeling the frame cave in. Strange, I whispered, looking straight into her pupils, dilated with fear. It's so hard today, practically stone, and not kicking at all. Are you sure he's comfortable in there? Silence hung in the room, broken only by the ticking of the old wall clock. Varisha stood, afraid to move, and I continued to keep my hand on her fake pregnancy, feeling her real trembling transmit to me through the layer of lies. I removed my hand from her stomach, but the sticky feeling of falsehood remained on my fingers, as if I had touched something dead. Varisha was breathing heavily, looking at me like a hunted animal, while I, changing nothing in my expression, calmly smoothed the folds on the fabric I had just held against her. "Rest, honey," I said in an even voice. "You shouldn't be agitated." Walking out into the hallway, I didn't go to the kitchen, but froze by the coat rack, pretending to look for a handkerchief in my coat pocket. The walls in our house are thick, but the doors are old and warped. "Kay, this is the end." Varisha's hysterical whisper reached me. "She suspects something. Did you see how she was feeling it? We need a baby, urgently." "Where am I going to get one for you?" my son snapped. "Buy one at the supermarket. Find one. Buy a certificate. Find a deal with some junkie in the maternity ward. Have her put it in our name. There are forums on the internet. People sell unwanted babies. We just need to show him to the attorney and get the papers. Then we'll return him. Say we gave him to a nanny or that he died. I don't care." A chill washed over me. They weren't just con artists. They were ready for human trafficking, for monstrous schemes with living souls, just to get to my brother's money. Pity, which perhaps was still smoldering somewhere at the very bottom of my heart, went out completely. I returned to the room an hour later. My appearance radiated determination and that same commanding care from which there is no salvation. "I've been thinking," I began, placing a cup of herbal tea in front of Kalan. "Your prenatal clinic is simply awful. Doctors are inattentive. Queues, unsanitary conditions. I called them and picked up your file." "Varisha, what?" Varisha jumped on the sofa, forgetting the weight of the belly. "You had no right! That's my doctor. He's been handling the pregnancy since day one." "He is incompetent," I cut her off. "He missed uterine hypertonicity. I saw how you were wincing yesterday. No, this won't do. The heir to such a huge empire as ours must be observed by luminaries of science." I paused, enjoying how they paled. "I called in old favors of Langston's, made an arrangement with Professor Storling. That's Augustus's brother, the best obstetrician geneticist in the state. Very strict, old school, takes only the elite. He will manage you until the delivery." "I'm not going anywhere," Varisha screeched, clutching her head. "I have a migraine. I can't get up. I get car sick." "Kay, tell her." Kalan, sweating, stepped in. "Ma, really, Varisha is feeling bad. Let's postpone. Maybe in a week." "No weeks." My voice became steel. "Inheritance documents require medical certification at every stage. No doctor's signature, no money. It's the law. Kalan, do you want us to lose the cabin because of your laziness?" They were silent, cornered. "But I am not a monster," I softened, smiling only with my lips. "Since Varisha is feeling bad, I arranged a house call. The professor will come here himself." "Here?" whispered my daughter-in-law. "Yes, any minute now. Tidy yourselves up. It should smell of cleanliness here, not your fear." For the next half hour, panic reigned in the apartment, comparable only to a fire in a chicken coop. Kalan ran around with the vacuum cleaner. Varisha frantically rummaged in the closet, trying to find something closed but light to hide the construction on her stomach and not sweat. I sat in the armchair with a book, not turning the pages, and listened to their terror grow. At exactly 7 p.m., the doorbell rang, sharp, demanding. Kalan froze in the middle of the room. Varisha pressed herself into the sofa cushions, pulling the blanket up to her nose. "Open it, Kalan," I commanded. "Our future has arrived." I went out into the hallway myself to meet the guest. On the threshold stood a tall, heavy-set man in an impeccable gray suit with a leather doctor's bag in his hand. His gray hair was slicked back, and on his nose sat glasses in strict horn-rimmed frames. It was Augustus Sterling, my attorney, but now, without his usual good-natured, with a stone face and a piercing gaze, he looked exactly as a merciless professor of medicine should look. Kalan and Varisha were seeing him for the first time. I had handled the paperwork alone, and they had only dreamed of the money. "Good evening," he rumbled in a deep bass, not smiling. "Where is the patient? I have little time." "Come in, Professor." I helped him off with his raincoat. They in the living room. We entered. Augustus didn't shake Kalan's hand, just nodded, and
and went straight to Varisha. He put the bag on the table, clicked the locks. The sound rang out like a gunshot. "Well then," he pronounced, pulling out a thick folder of papers and a fountain pen with a gold nib. "Complaints? Morning sickness? Swelling? A little nausea," Varisha babbled. "And my back hurts." "That is natural." He didn't even look at her, writing something down. "We won't conduct an examination. In home conditions, that is unprofessional."
I trust only stationary equipment. Tomorrow, I will write you a referral to my clinic. But right now, he raised a heavy gaze at them over his glasses. Right now, I need to fill out the chart of genetic markers. This is a mandatory condition for the child's succession rights. You understand, we are talking about large assets. We must rule out any hereditary pathologies. Kalan swallowed nervously. "Yes, of course, doctor. We are healthy." "We shall check that," the professor answered dryly. "Varisha, your blood type?" "A positive," she answered uncertainly. "Rake, conflicts, abortions, miscarriages?" "No, what are you saying?" she exclaimed too hastily. "This is the first pregnancy. I am absolutely healthy." "Chronic diseases in the female line?" "Mother, grandmother?" "None. In our family, everyone gives birth easily like cats." She tried to smile to diffuse the tension. Augustus stopped writing. He slowly put down the pen and pulled a printed sheet of paper with some stamps out of the folder. Silence hung in the room, so thick it seemed you could cut it with a knife. "Like cats, you say?" he asked again, looking at the sheet. "Strange, very strange." "What's strange?" Kalan's voice trembled. You see, have access to the Unified Federal Medical Database. Before a visit, I always check the history so as not to waste time on empty talk." He held up the sheet and looked at Varisha with a long, studying gaze from which she clearly wanted to fall through the floor. "Here it says that citizen Varisha Jenkins, your full maiden name, with your date of birth, 5 years ago underwent a serious operation at City General Hospital in Detroit." Varisha opened her mouth but made no sound. Her eyes widened. "Emergency hysterectomy," Augustus pronounced, articulating every syllable. "Removal of the uterus due to complicated fibroids." He took off his glasses and looked at her rounded belly with the cold curiosity of an entomologist. "Tell me, my dear, how, from a medical point of view, do you explain the miracle I see before me? Is the database wrong, or are you a phenomenon worthy of a Nobel Prize?" Kalan slowly turned his head to his wife. His face turned gray as ash. "Ree?" he wheezed. "What is he saying? What does he mean?" Varisha sat white as chalk, her fingers digging into her fake belly as if trying to keep it in place. The lie they had been building for weeks cracked at the seams, and the sound of that crack was deafening. "Error! It's a monstrous error!" Varisha shrieked, jumping up from the sofa so briskly that a pillow flew into the corner. "Are you crazy? What uterus? What Detroit? I lost my passport 5 years ago. Fraudsters took loans and got treated on my data." She was shaking all over, and I saw that the fear in her was real, animalistic, but not fear of exposure before the law, but fear of losing the meal ticket. Kalan, pale as a sheet, shifted his gaze from his wife to the doctor. "Of course an error," he hastily agreed, wiping a sticky forehead with his sleeve. "Ria's healthy. We feel him kicking, right, Ma?" He looked at me with such hope that I almost felt sorry for his stupidity. "Certainly," I said calmly, standing up and putting a hand on Augustus's shoulder. "Professor, databases often glitch. Varisha is young, healthy, and carrying my grandson. Let's not make the future mother nervous. Stress is bad for the fetus." Augustus sighed heavily, slammed the folder shut, and measured Varisha with an icy look over his glasses. "Fine, we'll write it off as a namesake. But note, before the birth, I will personally conduct a full examination. Genetics does not tolerate lies." He left, leaving behind the smell of expensive tobacco and the feeling of an impending storm. The door slammed shut, and Varisha immediately collapsed back onto the sofa, clutching her heart. "I can't take this anymore," she whispered when I went to the kitchen for water. The acoustics in the hallway were perfect. "Gay, that old coot sees right through me. He's going to check. We need to change the plan urgently." "What
My son's voice trembled. We won't make it to the birth. They won't get any baby, and when they find out the truth, they'll put us in jail. We need to play the pity card. Now that night, I hardly slept. I lay in my room, looking at the ceiling, where shadows from passing cars slid by, and listened. They whispered in the kitchen until dawn. Their plan was simply cynical, like a knife in the back. They decided to stage a premature birth, go far away into the boondocks, supposedly to nature, and return with a tragic face and a story about how the baby died during childbirth. They calculated that the heartbroken grandmother, me, in a fit of consolation, would sign over at least my current apartment to them, even a tuft of wool from a sheep, as Varisha said, clinking a spoon against the rim of a cup. In the morning, they came out to breakfast with the faces of martyrs. Varisha hadn't even put on makeup to emphasize her power. Mom, Kalan began, nervously crumpling a napkin. We've been thinking, the city environment is killing Varisha. Yesterday's stress with that doctor, she's getting worse. Oh, poor thing. I shook my head sympathetically, pouring them tea. And what should we do? We found a solution, Varisha picked up quickly. Her voice was weak, but her eyes tenaciously watched my reaction. There is a private retreat, Forest Birth. It's an eco-hotel in the woods, specializes in difficult pregnancies, silence, fresh air, naturopath midwives. We want to go there until the birth. That's probably expensive, I asked, stirring sugar. Very, Kalan exhaled. $20,000 for a month, plus rental of a separate cottage. We don't have that kind of money, Ma, but you talked about the inheritance, about the accounts. Of course, I interrupted him. Does money matter when it comes to the life of a grandson? I got up and went to the china cabinet. In a box lay my checkbook. I felt their greedy gazes. They burned my back. They thought they had won, that they would get the money now, run to some cheap motel, party there for a week, and then return with a tragedy. I took out a pen. What did you say the place was called? I asked, not turning around. Just write it to cash. Kalan will pay himself. They have problems with the terminal. Varisha lied quickly. No, I turned and smiled the kindest of my smiles at her. Order is order. I will write a cashier's check. I know a wonderful place that the professor spoke of. He highly recommended it for nervous mommies like you. I quickly filled in the lines, signed with a flourishing hand, and held the piece of paper out to my son. Here, son, don't thank me. Go straight there today. I'll help back. Kalan grabbed the check with trembling hands. His eyes darted across the lines, and the smile slowly slid off his face, replaced by a grimace of bewilderment. Ma, he muttered, this says State Psychiatric Hospital, closed ward. Varisha snatched the check from him. Are you mocking us? She shrieked, forgetting the role of the dying swan. What mental hospital? I'm pregnant, not crazy. Really? I raised an eyebrow in surprise, sitting back down at the table. But it seemed to me you were having a nervous breakdown. You were screaming yesterday about an error, about a passport. The professor said this is typical hysteria against a background of phantom pains. What phantom pains? Kalan yelled, throwing the check on the table. Enough of this circus. Give us normal money. We need to leave. Leave? I asked coldly. Running from what? From responsibility, Kalan, or from the past? I reached into the pocket of my house cardigan and pulled out a photograph. Old, slightly yellowed, with a bent corner. I put it on the table next to the check, face up. In the picture, dated 10 years earlier, stood a young, blooming Varisha. She was hugging a balding man in a cheap suit. But the main thing wasn't that. Varisha was wearing a tight, khaki knit dress that didn't hide a huge, round belly, exactly the same as now. Silence hung in the room. Varisha stared at the photo, and her lips trembled for real. Where from? She whispered. From your high school album, which you so carelessly left in the closet when you moved in with us. I lied. Actually, Augustus had dug up this photo in the archives of a fraud case in Cleveland, but it was too early for them to know that. I leaned toward her, looking straight into her dilated pupils. You look so fertile here, Varisha, and that man, that's not Kalan, right? And not your first husband. Where is that baby? He should be 10 years old now. Or, I paused, letting the words fall like heavy stones. Or did that pregnancy also dissolve along with that poor bald man's money? Varisha reached out as if I had hit her. Kalan grabbed the photo, brought it to his eyes, and I saw the rusty gears of doubt finally starting to turn in his brain, fogged by laziness and lust. Ree, he asked quietly, what was that you told me? That I was your first? She's lying, Varisha screamed, but in her voice was already the panic of a cornered rat. I'm not lying, honey, I answered calmly, taking the check from the table and tearing it into small pieces. I'm just caring for the purity of the experiment. No trips. We will give birth here, under my supervision. I blew the scraps of paper from my palm in their direction. And now eat your oatmeal. It's getting cold. The oatmeal was getting cold, turning into gray paste erased, but no one touched it. Verisha sat silently from the table. In her movements, there was no longer any faint weakness or fake pregnant clumsiness. She moved sharply, like a spring ready to uncoil and strike. She grabbed Kalan by the elbow, hard, possessively, digging manicured nails into the fabric of his shirt. "To the bedroom," she hissed. "Right now." The door slammed behind them, but the old walls of our apartment seemed only to amplify the sound. I remained sitting in the kitchen, slowly finishing my tea, and listened to their invented world collapse. "You rag," Verisha squeaked. "Your mother is mocking us. She knows everything. That photo. She's laughing in our faces." Keep it down," Kalan mumbled. "We're almost at the goal." "To hell with the goal. To hell with the cabin," she interrupted. "I won't wait for a birth that won't happen. I want guarantees now. This apartment. Have her sign it over to you immediately. Tell her I'm leaving. Tell her I'll get an abortion if she doesn't sign the deed today. Go and demand it, or I'm packing my things, and you stay with your crazy mother and her berarium." A minute later, the door flew open. Kalan came out into the hallway. I had never seen my son like this. His face was twisted with fear of losing this predator, with humiliation and
Powerless anger. He walked up to me as I was calmly wiping a saucer with a towel. He snatched the towel from my hands and threw it on the floor. "Enough!" he barked. His voice cracked into a falsetto. "Enough acting, Mom. We know you're stalling." I raised my eyebrows in surprise. "I'm only caring about—" "Shut up!" He slammed his fist on the table. The cups clinked pitifully. "Verisha is on the edge. If she leaves, I won't forgive you. I don't care about your attorney's conditions. I don't care about the cabin. Sign this apartment over to me now, today, and we'll leave you alone in your crypt." He loomed over me, breathing heavily and jaggedly. He smelled of sweat and fear. "Otherwise," he stumbled, but continued looking away. "Otherwise, you won't see your grandson. We'll leave and you'll die here alone." I looked at him and saw not a man, but a frightened boy breaking toys because he doesn't know how to play with them. Nothing stirred inside me. No resentment, no pain, only cold calculation. "You want the apartment, Khan?" I asked quietly. "Right now?" "Yes, the deed." "Fine," I nodded. "I agree. But you know, Callan, I am an old woman. I'm afraid of being left with nothing. I don't believe words anymore. Want to be the master? Prove you are ready to sacrifice for the family." "What do you need?" He squinted. "A buyout," I said. "A simple apartment costs a lot, but I'll give it to you for a symbolic price. I need cash right now." "I don't have money. You know I quit." "You have a car?" I began to bend my fingers. "Your beloved foreign car that you polish every weekend instead of helping me at the house. You have a Swiss watch, a gift for your 30th birthday. You have a gaming console, a laptop, a vinyl collection. Sell everything." "Are you crazy?" he exhaled. "Those are my things, and this is my apartment." I cut him off harshly. "If Verisha and the child are more important to you than a piece of iron on wheels, you'll do it. Bring me the money by Friday evening, and I'll sign the deed." It was a test, and he failed it. For the next 3 days, Khan darted around the city like a scalded cat. I saw him carrying boxes of electronics out of the house. I saw through the window how resellers inspected his car in the courtyard, driving down the price, and he, pale and shaking, nodded to all their conditions. Verisha spurred him on, hissing at his back, checking if he had held anything back. They were so blinded by greed, the desire to grab at least something here and now, that they didn't even stop to think why I suddenly needed money if I was supposedly the heirs to millions. On Friday evening, Khan walked into the living room. He looked 10 years older. No car, no watch, empty-handed, just a thick paper envelope. I was sitting by the fireplace. It was my whim to light it in the middle of summer. I told them the dampness of the ground floor hurt my joints. The fire crackled merrily, devouring dry logs. "Here," Khan threw the envelope on the coffee table. "Sold everything for pennies. Car, computer, watch, everything." Verisha stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her eyes greedily gleaming, glued to the envelope. "Count it," my son grumbled. "There's 15,000 there. Enough for your old age."
Where are the documents? I slowly reached for the envelope, took it in my hands, feeling the pleasant weight. 15 grand, I said thoughtfully. The price of your comfort, the price of your toys. I opened the flap and pulled out a stack of bills. Hundreds, crisp. Callan looked at them with longing, Varisha with lust. I'll go get my glasses, I said, rising. Need to check the watermarks. So many counterfeits these days. I turned to the secretary desk in the corner, blocking the view with my wide back in a knitted shawl. My hands worked quickly and precisely like a magician's. One movement, and the stack of real money slipped into the deep pocket of my apron. Second movement, from another pocket into my palm lay an exactly identical stack, exactly the same thickness and color, only I had bought it at a novelty store. Movie money for $5. I turned to them, holding the dummy in my hand. Seems real, I said, walking to the fireplace. Of course it's real, Callan barked. Sign the papers. I stood by the fire watching the dancing flames. You know, Callan, I said quietly, you sold everything you loved for a piece of concrete. You were ready to strip your mother to the bone on the orders of this woman. Mom, don't start. Give me the deed. Paper. I weighed the stack in my hand. It's just paper, son. It burns. But a conscience? A conscience you can't buy. And before they could understand what was happening, I opened my fingers. The stack of money fell right into the center of the fire. A second of silence, then a wild, inhuman scream from Callan. No! He threw himself at the fireplace, fell on his knees, trying to snatch the money from the fire with his bare hands. But dry wood and a good draft did their job. The paper flared up instantly. Bright flames engulfed the stack, turning the millions into black ash. What have you done? He screamed, rolling on the floor and clutching his head. You burned it! You burned everything! My car, my money, you crazy! Varisha froze in the doorway, mouth open. Her face turned gray. I stood over him, calm and unshakable, feeling the pleasant weight of the real money in my pocket. Money is dust, Callan, I said, watching him sob over a handful of ash. Trust is earned harder. You failed your exam. I stepped over his huddled figure and headed for the exit of the room. By the way, I threw over my shoulder, I changed my mind about writing the deed. Live like this for now, if you can. I didn't stop Varisha when she, stepping over the sobbing Callan on the floor, grabbed her phone. In her eyes, there was no longer fear or greed, only pure, distilled rage of a cornered rat with nothing to lose. Police, she yelled into the receiver, her voice breaking. Help! Address is 42 Lenox Avenue, apartment 3. There's a crazy woman here. She's threatening me with a knife. She's locked us in. I'm pregnant. She wants to kill my baby. Come quickly. She threw the phone on the sofa and turned to me. Her chest was heaving, nostrils flaring. You wanted war, you old witch, she hissed. You'll get it. I'll put you in the loony bin. I'll say you lunged at me, that you burned the money in a fit. Callan will confirm it. Yes, Callan. The son raised his head. His face was swollen from tears, his gaze empty. He didn't answer, just sniffled, looking at the pile of ash in the fireplace. I silently sat in my favorite armchair by the window, picked up a basket with my knitting from the table. My hands were not trembling. I took out the needles and an unfinished bonnet of soft white wool. Loop after loop, knit, purl. The rhythmic click of metal calmed me. I knew I had 10 minutes, no more. The precinct was just 2 blocks away. Knit, knit, Varisha threw maliciously, nervously adjusting her tunic. They won't give you needles in a padded cell. I noticed she jerked, adjusting her belly. It shifted slightly unnaturally with a light rubbery squeak that hadn't been audible before. Apparently, the foam frame she had sweated in for weeks had finally exhausted her, and while Callan was suffering over the thousands, she had managed to switch props to something lighter, inflatable, a cheap party item.
What unforgivable carelessness! The door began to shake, loud, demanding pounding of fists. Open up! Police! Varisha instantly transformed. The anger vanished from her face, giving way to a mask of horror and suffering. She tousled her hair, scratched her arm with her nails until it was red, clutched her stomach, and hobbled to the door. Save us, she screamed, throwing open the lock. In here, she's there. 2 police officers flew into the apartment, young, out of breath, in dark uniforms and heavy boots, hands on holsters, gazes sharp, assessing. Behind them loomed the beat cop, a tired man with a folder under his arm. "Where's the knife?" barked the first one, scanning the hallway. "She hid it," sobbed, hanging on the sergeant's sleeve. "She's insane. First, she forced my husband to sell all his property, and then she burned the money right in front of our eyes. She keeps us locked up, won't let me go to the doctor. Look at my husband. She drove him to this." The officers looked at Kalan, who was still sitting on the floor, indifferent to everything, smearing soot over his face. The picture really did look grim. A trashed room, the smell of burning, a crying man, and a hysterical pregnant woman. "Ma'am, stand up," commanded the sergeant, heading toward me. "Hands where we can see them." I calmly placed the knitting on my knees, but didn't let go of the needles. I looked at them over my glasses with my signature librarian look, which subdued hooligans in the reading room with one raised eyebrow. "Good evening, officers," I pronounced in a soft, velvet voice. "Forgive the mess. We have a family drama." "Drama?" Vericia shrieked. "She's a maniac! Arrest her! I'm threatened with a miscarriage because of her. My stomach is pulling. Oh, Mommy, it hurts." She bent double, moaning theatrically. The sergeant was at a loss. Female tears and a pregnant belly are kryptonite for any officer of the law. He turned to his partner. "Call an ambulance. The pregnant woman is in bad shape." "No ambulance," Vericia shouted hastily, realizing doctors would immediately reveal the deception. "Just take her away. Take her to the station and we will drive to the clinic ourselves." That was a mistake. I saw doubt flicker in the beat cop's eyes. He walked into the room, sniffing the smell of burnt paper. "Ma'am," he addressed me, "your daughter-in-law claims you are holding them by force and threatening their lives." "Do I look like a jailer?" I smiled sadly, rising from the chair. In my right hand was clutched a long, sharp knitting needle. The officer tensed, putting a hand on his baton. "Drop the object." "It's just a needle, son," I said, taking a step toward Vericia. "I'm knitting a bonnet for my grandson. I'm waiting for this child so much. I do everything for them. Feed them, give them drink, dust off specks of dust. And Vericia, she is very tired." I walked right up to her. Vericia backed away, pressing her back against the china cabinet. "Don't come near me," she shrieked. "Get her away." "She's just confused, Lieutenant," I continued, not taking my eyes off her stomach. "You know, there is such a disorder, phantom, when a woman wants money so badly, a baby, that it seems to her like he exists, but in reality, there is emptiness there." "What are you spouting?" hissed Vericia. Her eyes darted. "Officers, you are experienced men." I turned to the police as if inviting them as witnesses. "Look for yourselves. Does a real belly bounce like that?" And before anyone could react, I lunged fast, precise, like a fencer. "No!" Kalan yelled, jumping up from the floor, but it was too late. I didn't hit Vericia. I just lightly, with the very tip of the needle, poked the stretched fabric of her tunic right in the center of the bulge. I expected an effect, but reality exceeded expectations. A sound rang out like a shot from a BB gun. Pop! And following it, a long, pitiful whistling sound of escaping air. Vericia squealed and instinctively grabbed her stomach with both hands, but there was nothing to grab. Under her fingers, the volume was rapidly melting. The tunic, just tight around an impressive sphere, was collapsing before our eyes, turning into a shapeless rag. Silence hung in the room, absolute and ringing. Even the clock seemed to stop ticking. Two young officers stood with open mouths, watching Vericia's pregnancy deflate with a sad whistle until it turned into a flat piece of rubber dangling under her clothes. The beat cop grunted and rubbed the bridge of his nose, hiding a smirk. Vericia stood pressed against the cabinet. Her face went red with blotches. She looked down at her deflated belly, then at me, then at the police. In her eyes was such horror and shame that for a second I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You see," I sighed heavily, putting the needle back in the basket. "Poor girl. False pregnancy. Inflatable." I looked at the dumbfounded officers with an expression of deep sorrow. She doesn't need a lawyer, officers, and not protection from an old mother-in-law. She needs a psychiatrist. She wears a balloon under her clothes and demands millions for it. Tell me, do they put you in jail for that or take you straight to the funny farm? Kalan covered his face with his hands and slid down the wall back to the floor, making sounds like the whimpering of a beaten dog. Vericia was silent. The air had gone out of her baby, and with it all her arrogance, all her insolence, all her power went out of her. She stood before us naked in her deceit, flat and pathetic. "Well," coughed the beat cop, breaking the silence.
Ma'am, what is going on here? False call. It's a cry for help, I corrected gently. Take her. She doesn't belong here. The beat cop shuffled in the hallway for another minute, shaking his head disapprovingly and looking at the scrap of rubber dangling from under Varai's clothes. You really should see a specialist, ma'am, he grumbled, tucking the report into his folder. Or else we can write you up for a false report and disorderly conduct. I'll let it go this first time. Family squabbles are murky business, but if I hear screams one more time, I'm taking everyone in until it's sorted out. The door slammed behind them with a heavy, final sound, cutting us off from the outside world, from law and order. Silence hung in the apartment, but it wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence before an explosion, when the fuse has already burned down and the fire has touched the powder. Varisha stood in the middle of the hallway, breathing heavily. Her face, a minute ago portraying the suffering of a victim, suddenly twisted. The mask slipped. She abruptly, with animal fury, tore the remains of the deflated fake belly off herself, ripping the elastic bands, and threw this pitiful lump of plastic at her feet. Damn you, you old hag, she screamed so loud that the crystal in the cabinet responded with a thin ring. I hate you. I hate your house, your broths, your holy face. Ray, Kalan voiced from the floor. He was still sitting there, crushed, dirty, looking like a pile of rags. Ray, what are you saying? She spun around to him and kicked him in the leg with the toe of her trendy shoe. Shut up, she screeched, spraying saliva. For God, how you make me sick. You're a slug, Kalan.
I nodded to the movers. And now, get out. Varisha raised her head. Out of my apartment, both of you, right now. Mom, I have nowhere to go, screamed Kalan. I sold everything. I don't even have money for a hostel. You have a healthy, non-pregnant wife, I pointed at Varisha, and working hands. Go work as a mover, a janitor, whatever. My house is not a shelter for parasites. Take them out, I told the men in coveralls. The bearded one stepped toward Kalan, the second headed for Varisha. No, you have no right. I'm registered here, squealed Kalan, clinging to the armrests of the chair. You signed out a month ago, I reminded him, pulling out another paper. Remember, I asked you to do that to process benefits for the grandson? You signed without looking. You are nobody here, Kalan, a guest who stayed too long. The movers grabbed them by the arms, politely but firmly. Varisha tried to bite. Kalan sobbed and begged, but they dragged them to the exit. I heard their screams on the stairwell, heard neighbors opening doors, heard the heavy entrance door slam shut, cutting off their voices. I remained alone in the empty, ransacked apartment. It smelled of burning, Varisha's cheap perfume, and heart medication. But the air was surprisingly clean. I walked to the table, took the sheet with the inheritance waiver, a simple printout from the internet with a fake stamp I had made in Photoshop, and slowly tore it into small pieces. The scraps of paper fell to the floor, mixing with the ash in the fireplace. A lie for salvation is a sin, but a lie in the name of justice is a weapon. And today, I fired point blank. I didn't stare at the scraps of paper on the floor for long. There was no time for sentimentality, and self-pity is a luxury I could no longer afford. I went into the bedroom where my son had recently ruled, opened the closet, and took out an old, worn suitcase that he used to take to summer camp. Into this suitcase flew everything left of his former life, the few shirts he hadn't managed to sell, a couple of sweaters, socks, old chains. I didn't fold them neatly as I used to, packing him for business trips. I just grabbed things in armfuls and crammed them inside, feeling the weight leave my chest with every thrown item. It was quiet outside the front door, but I knew he was there. I felt his presence like you feel a draft from a crack. I zipped up the zipper, picked up the suitcase. It turned out to be surprisingly light, just like my son's whole life. Resolutely, I headed for the hallway. The lock clicked. I threw open the door. Kalan was sitting on the concrete step, clutching his head in his hands. He was alone. Varisha was long gone. As soon as she heard about debts and bankruptcy, her love evaporated faster than morning fog. Predators don't linger where there is nothing to profit from. Seeing me, Kalan jumped up. His eyes were red, face swollen, shirt untucked. He looked pathetic. But in this pathetic sight, I no longer saw my little boy. I saw a stranger, a weak man. Mom, he rushed to me, trying to grab my hand. But I stepped back, holding out the suitcase like a shield between us. Mom, forgive me. I'm not guilty. It's all her, Varisha. She bewitched me.
She drove me crazy. I didn't want to. I love you." He was choking on words, snot, and lies. "She forced me. She said we had to. Mom, let me come home. I have nowhere to go. She left me on the street." I looked down at him. In my heart, it was quiet and empty, like in a dead forest in winter. "Bewitched?" I asked quietly. "No, Kalan. She just offered you what you wanted most, easy money, and you followed her like a calf to slaughter. You are not a victim of hypnosis. You are an accomplice." "I'll fix it. I'll go to work. Mommy, don't kick me out." I set the suitcase at his feet. "You laughed at me, Kalan," I said firmly, looking him straight in the eye. "I heard every word through that or move me to a shack. You were ready to strip me to the bone while I was alive." "Those were just words." "No," I shook my head. "Those were thoughts and actions. You sold everything you had to buy my signature. You are not a son to me anymore. You are a thief who tried to steal my trust, and I cannot live under one roof with a thief." "And where am I supposed to go?" he yelled, realizing tears weren't working. "Adult life is big, Kalan. Go wherever you want. After Varisha, to the factory, anywhere." I stepped back and took hold of the door handle. "Goodbye, Mama." The door slammed shut, cutting off his scream. I turned both locks, put on the chain, and leaned my forehead against the cool upholstery. A single tear rolled down my cheek, but I wiped it away with a steady hand. The past was over. The present was beginning. A week later, I was sitting in the same attorney's office where this story began. The windows were thrown open, and a warm summer wind rustled the heavy emerald curtains. Augustus Sterling sat opposite, sorting through a stack of documents with official seals. He looked pleased, but a little puzzled. He took off his glasses and looked at me with undisguised respect. "Well, Ulea," he rumbled, "I confess honestly, I've seen a lot in my practice, but such a gambit. You surprised me." "Had to improvise, Gus," I smiled, taking a sip of strong coffee. "As they say, when you run with wolves, you have to howl." "So we are processing everything according to option B," he clarified, picking up a gold pen. "Yes." He slid the papers toward me. "So we confirm, your brother Langston had no debts. That was pure fiction, a legend you and I invented to test the heirs." "Exactly," I nodded, feeling joy rising in my chest like champagne bubbles. "The inheritance is clean," the attorney continued, putting check marks in the necessary places. "Langston's estate is valued at $70 million. Bank accounts, stocks, 2 condos in a luxury complex, and of course, the country residence. All this passes into your full and undivided ownership." I took the pen. $70 million, a figure that would have given Kalan and Varisha a heart attack had they known the truth. They burned on greed, destroyed their lives for a phantom, scared of non-existent debts. But the money was real, and now it was mine. "I'm keeping the condos," I ordered, signing the first sheet. "I'll rent them out. I need a supplement to my pension. I want to live with dignity." "But the cabin," I thought for a second. "That same cabin with the pool that Varisha dreamed of so much. Sign the cabin over to the Hope Charity Foundation. Let them make a summer camp for orphans there. Langston loved children. He would have liked that." "And the son?" Augustus raised an eyebrow. "Kalan gets nothing at all? Not even a room in a boarding house?" I remembered my son's face distorted with malice when he demanded the deed from me. Remembered his words about the shack. "I left Kalan the most valuable thing," I answered, putting the last, most sweeping signature. "I gave him freedom and the necessity to finally become a man. That is dearer than any money. Not a penny, Gus. Cross him out of everything." Augustus grunted and stamped the documents.
It is done. Congratulations, Miss Hightower. You are now a wealthy lady. What are the plans? I stood up, squared my shoulders, and walked to the window. The sun flooded the street, playing glints on the roofs of cars. The world seemed huge, bright, and surprisingly welcoming. Plans? I asked again, pulling a bright travel agency brochure from my purse. First things first, shopping. I need a new dress, and not gray and not black. I want something bright, sunny. And then I put the brochure on the attorney's desk. On the glossy cover, a huge white liner cut through turquoise waves. The Mediterranean Gulfs,
A cruise for 3 weeks. Barcelona, Marseille, Rome. Always dreamed of seeing the Colosseum. Ticket is already booked. Single luxury suite with a balcony. I walked out of the office onto the street, inhaled deeply the smell of the city mixed with the scent of freedom. I am Ulea Hightower, 64 years old, former naive sheep, former convenient mother, currently a millionaire, traveler, and mistress of my own destiny. And you know what? Life is just beginning. And so ends the story of Ulea Hightower, a story of how boundless motherly love, colliding with betrayal, hardened and turned into a steel rod of justice. Many of you are probably arguing right now. Some will say the mother acted too cruelly, leaving her son on the street and depriving him of everything. After all, he is her blood, her child, even if he stumbled. Others, on the contrary, will support Ulea, believing that evil must be punished and parasites must be cut off before they drink life dry without remainder. And what would you have done? Could you forgive a son who was ready to sell you for money? Or do you think Ulea taught him the best lesson of his life, which perhaps will one day make a man out of him? I am very interested to know your opinion, because life often throws us plots stranger than any novels, and a correct answer perhaps simply does not exist. Please don't forget to hit like if this story touched a nerve, and subscribe to our channel. We are preparing many more vital, poignant stories for you that make you think. Write your thoughts in the comments. Share your experience. We read every review. We wish you all the best. At the end of this video, a window will appear in the center of the screen. Click on it to watch our other most captivating stories.